Hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Today I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, and I've decided that I should probably start introducing myself at the beginning of these more than just hello and welcome to Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma, because a lot of people are probably like just see this and they watch the first 3 seconds and they're like, I don't want to watch that. So I'm trying to like be better about explaining myself so that people know what they're getting into. So my name is Emma. I live in Baltimore. I'm not a full-time knitter. I have a day job. I work with students who are in college at a university, and I like to knit a lot. I have a lot of other hobbies, but I think if someone who knew me could give a review of me, they would say she really puts everything into her weird hobbies. So yeah, knitting brings me joy. And I will say, yeah, for what it's worth, I don't half-ass my hobbies. I whole-ass them. So things like knitting, and I also, my other hobby, if you follow me for a while, you probably know this, I used to be in academia, and my field was church music, English church music specifically, so I also do not, I don't half-ass that either. That's something that sometimes I talk about because I sing professionally in Episcopal churches, because this is America. If I were in England or Canada, it would be Anglican or Church of England. But yeah, so those are my two things that I do a lot of, and I like to come and talk about knitting every week, and spinning and dyeing and designing. So I do all the things. I had like one more every couple of years, and you know, see where it takes me. I'm usually sipping a beverage. Today it's tea. I'm recording this on a Saturday morning. Saturday morning is my usual time to record because I usually don't have anything planned, although sometimes Jordan and I go hiking on Saturday mornings, but it's really cold. It's like 15 degrees outside. It's not as cold as it is in Vermont, where my mom keeps texting me that with the wind chill it's minus 38, so it's not that cold, but it's pretty cold for Maryland. And I grew up in Vermont, so this, like when I walk outside and it's 25 degrees, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like you gotta wear a big coat, but like this isn't that bad. But apparently everybody else doesn't want to go outside, so that's fair. I understand that, even if I don't necessarily feel the same. I plan to go on a walk today outside, probably for like at least an hour, but that's me and I'm insane. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm trying to sort of divide this more into like FOs, well, stuff's going on if I'm like putting out a pattern or something. FOs, finished objects if you're not a knitter, works in progress, whips, and then spinning content. And I intersperse everything with a lot of tangents. I could try and do that at the end, but I don't, because my brain doesn't really work that way. So I talk a lot about like random stuff that I've done in the week, and also like what I'm watching or reading. So yeah, that's just kind of like interspersed. So okay, let's get started. So last week I teased these. I'm gonna tease them again. I think they're gonna be out by Tuesday. This is my Jane Bennett sock pattern. I think these are gonna be out by Tuesday. If they're not, like they're gonna come out this week sometime. So I release my episodes on Tuesdays mornings, so I assume this will be. Maybe we'll make it live like at the same time as the episode. That would be so fun. So these are my Jane Bennett socks. This is a big thick version of in worsted weight Rama Vondre. All of my sock designs coming out in the next couple of years are named after women from Jane Austen novels, just like me. So if you are itching to get your hands on one now, you can go buy the Emma Woodhouse pattern from the Woolly Thistle. But these are knit in Rama Vondre, which is a worsted weight yarn with a tight twist that is designed for socks. It is 100% wool, and again, it's worsted weight, so thick. I do have a version of this pattern in the PDF. There's like a DK worsted version, so you can make them in Rama Vondre. They will be kind of bigger slipper socks, but you can adjust the stitch counts yourself if you want. But then there's just like a regular. So basically I'm doing 48, 56, 64, and 72 stitches around the leg. So you can decide what your preferred stitch count is for the preferred yarn that you want to use. And then, so the DK is the 48 stitches, and then small, medium, larger, 56, 64, and 72. So for me, I would probably knit, like if I were knitting like a sport weight yarn, I would choose the 56 stitch size, unless you have really, really small ankles or you have a loose gauge, which I wouldn't recommend for socks. If you have a loose gauge for socks, they will, like you'll get holes in them faster. So because the stitches won't be as small and you'll be more likely to wear, like they'll be more likely to wear through. So tighter gauge is recommended for socks. But this is, yeah, I got this yarn in the Woolly Thistle sock bag. You can get this yarn and at some point this pattern from the Woolly Thistle, but you can also get it on Ravelry. It will be linked in the show notes. And I'm very excited. So that's just some short business. Okay, FOs. Oh shoot, I forgot it. Okay, hang on, I'm gonna have to pause this and go get them. Okay, it turned out that was not the only thing I forgot. There were 2 socks, the same type of sock that I forgot. So, okay, I finished, as I teased last time, this was like 20 minutes from being done. I finished my pair of Kitty Bennett socks, which is, this is my next sock that will be released probably in March. We'll see. And this is just a plain sock with one little lace panel here up the side. It goes down one, up/down one side of the foot, and the other sock will, I mean, you can do them the same, but I do them so that they're on opposite sides of the foot. Simple lace pattern, yeah. So this sock is knit in John Arbin Exmoor sock and the colorway Bell Heather. So I knit it all. I knit all my socks in commercial yarns. I knit them all in hand-dyed yarns by me, and then I knit them in commercial yarns as well. Some of them are like, you know, wool nylon commercial sock blends. And then, I mean, this is a commercial sock blend. This is from John Arbin, but this is like a woolly sock yarn. A lot of sock, you know, sock yarns are like heavily processed merino nylon. So this is John Arbin Exmoor sock. I always knit a sample in yarn you can buy at the Woolly Thistle. So this was my choice for Kitty Bennett. I really like this this yarn. It's like, you know, just makes you feel like you're wearing real wool socks. Not that, like, you know, commercial processed wool doesn't feel like wool. It's like it's warm and it has the same properties, but it's so processed. Like this really has the tooth, and a lot of people don't like that. So I will say, for what it's worth, you might not enjoy that. But if you do, I am a huge lover of woolly wool, and that's why I work with a Woolly Thistle, because they have all the woolly wool. So if you see like links in the show notes, they'll always be to them, because I work with them and I love supporting this small business and, you know, directing others to support this small business that I love. So these are the Kitty Bennett socks that I finished, or this is one. So this is my next sock again, as I said. So I'll be releasing these throughout the year and then throughout next year. You'll be seeing all the samples like as the sock comes up. So this is another sample of the kitty socks. And as you can see, I've got stitch markers here to mark my repeats so that I can do the same thing on the second sock. This is a colorway from At Haynes House, which is a family dye business located in Maryland, not super far from me, with Terry, who's the owner, and then her whole family, the Haynes family. And they dye at Haynes House. So that's why they're called At Haynes House. And she has a whole, as I said last week, she has a whole Jane Austen line of yarns, because she is a total bibliophile and used to work in a bookstore. And so she sent me some yarn to do samples, and I did, and I love this one. This is the Kitty Bennett colorway. It's called I Don't Cough for My Own Amusement. Jane and Kitty Bennett are characters from Pride and Prejudice. So if you have not read that, you should read it, or you should watch one of the film adaptations, because they're great. And it's got the same kind of little lacy pattern all down the foot, side of the foot, and up the calf. I like to do these ones as little shorties so that you can see what they look like as shorties too. I like to just show a variety. But yeah, these are a little shorter. So usually, like for this, I would do 64 rounds of the leg before I started the cuff. For this, I only did 32, so I cut that in half, that number. So there you go. And it's like, yeah, it's green. It's got these little pink speckles. So it's funny because my hand-dyed colorway that I did, my own hand-dyed colorway for the kitty socks were pink. They were kind of like a pinkish white, kind of strawberries and cream blend of a commercial sock yarn that I dyed. And then the DK sample, because I always do a bunch of samples. One is hand-dyed, one is DK weight, or 2 yarns held together. One is woolly, etc. I do 3 or 4 samples for each sock. This is, they're both, the DK version was also green. So I had 2 pink ones and 2 green ones. And the green has little pink blips. So I guess kitty, everyone associates kitty with only the colors pink and green. So, and I've gone straight from FOs into whips, but I don't actually have any other FOs because it's been a busy week. So I will tell you what I'm wearing though, because I didn't say that. This is the throw over, but I cut it. So by Andrea Mowry. It's an Andrea Mowry pattern. The throw over is the pullover version of this, and the throwback is the cardigan version, but she doesn't, in the pattern of the throw back, she does not have you steek. She has you knit the color work back and forth. I said, I'm good. I'm going to steek it. I'm really comfortable with steeking, which is when you cut your knitting. I use a needle felter tool to secure my stitches so that they don't unravel. And I used Briggs & Little Heritage. Oh, actually I have a Briggs & Little bag. Briggs & Little is a Canadian yarn company that is located in New Brunswick. It's a mill. It's a woolen mill. Briggs & Little, your time deserves quality. I also have a sweatshirt. Someone brought it for me from the mill some years ago. And I love Briggs & Little yarn. It is really economical, so it's not expensive. You can get some of the colors of Heritage, which is what I knitted. This is the Aran weight version of their yarn. You can get Heritage, some colors of Heritage at Webb's, but the main US distributor is Maritime Family Fibers, which is a small family fiber company located in Maine. I will link them in the show notes. But yeah, Heritage is one of my favorite yarns. That's like an Aran weight for sure. This is knitted at a gauge of 16 stitches over 4 inches. And I have knitted Heritage sweaters at 18 stitches over 4 inches, but it's not very comfortable on your hands because the gauge is too tight for the yarn, and the yarn is quite woolly and not very springy because it's wool and spun. So I prefer at that gauge, like 18 stitches over 4 inches, to use their worsted weight, which is called Regal. And the yardage on Regal is really good. There's like 275 yards in a 4-ounce skein, so 113 grams, but not bad. If you're in Canada, obviously you can get it anywhere. They sell it everywhere. Sometimes it's hard to find all the colors though. Apparently they're having trouble keeping like specific colors in stock, like at Romney Wools when I was there in November, which is the yarn store in Toronto. They were like, yeah, we don't have that much because it's hard to keep colors in because everybody wants it. Apparently it's very popular. So the color work is Peace Fleece worsted, and that's Volga Sippy Blue, this pink is Morning Dove, and then this green is called Lily Pad. And I actually had this left over from when I did sample knitting for Peace Fleece about 4 or 5 years ago. I knitted a couple of pairs of mittens, and I knitted like the real samples, which is so funny. I'm like, I knit those, and people are like, yeah, I knit patterns too. And I'm like, no, I knit those ones. I knit that pair of mittens that's in all the promo photos. It's kind of wild. But they sent me like way too much yarn, and then they were like, you can just keep it. And I was like, wow, that's nice of you. So that's this. It'll be linked in the show notes. I do have a video from like a year-ish ago about how I did it. So how I added a steek to the throw back, or the throw over, sorry. And you can use that method for how to add a steek to any colorwork yoke sweater in the, circular yoke or raglan, really any sweater from the top down. So yeah, you can look out for that video that I'll link as well. So I actually have my iPad here with like notes that I have to talk about so that I don't forget anything, which is new for me. But the reason I didn't have more FOs is because it was a really crazy week at work because classes started for all the students at UMBC this week. So I was very busy. I'm always busy at work, but I can't, it's one of those weeks where it's like, you get to work really hard, and then you come home and you're just exhausted. So I also had a bunch of things going on this week, like after work. So I didn't have a ton of like downtime knitting. On Wednesdays, I always go to pub trivia though. So I always bring vanilla knitting with me. There's a receipt in there from the hardware store from when I bought sandpaper yesterday. Fun. So this is what I do at trivia, and I show this every week, and every week it gets a little longer because I knit a little bit more at trivia. And this is the Maddie cardigan by Kristen Drysdale, who sometimes goes by, like, her professional handle is Scandiwork. And she designed this with a steek. So you can see the steek bridge there, which is where I'm gonna cut. And then you keep doing it. And I always have a purl stitch on the edge of my steek so I know where to pick up the stitches. So if you're curious about how you pick them up in a straight line, that's how I would do it. A lot of people just use a really good light, but I like to know that I'm picking up the right stitch in a line. I don't want it to look wonky, so I always do a purl bridge. And this is knitted in Biche Bouche Le Petit Lamb's wool, which you can get at the Woolly Thistle, or, you know, if you're in another country, you can get it somewhere else, hopefully. I think I got this at Espace Tricot, because I got this years ago before the Woolly Thistle was carrying it. And I got it in Montreal because I grew up in Vermont. So when I'm home in Vermont with my parents, there's a variety of reasons to go to Montreal. One, that it's the closest major city and it's kind of fun, and the exchange rate's really good. So I probably got that like when I was in grad school, and we just like went out when I was home for like spring break or something. But yeah, I recently went to Montreal because my grandparents, who live in Alberta, came to visit Vermont for Christmas, and so they flew to Montreal, and my mom and I picked them up because it's like an hour and a half away. And we went to Espace Tricot. When we dropped them off at the airport to go back to Calgary, we went to Espace Tricot after that. So I get my fix. My mom does too. She also likes to knit. If you want to see my mom, she's been in a couple episodes. If you just go to like my channel and hit videos, you can scroll and you'll see. There was one like last month or 2 months ago, so it was the end of December, where I talked to my mom and my grandma, which was really fun. So yeah, that is my vanilla knitting project. One day the body will be finished, and then I'll move on to the sleeves, and then it'll be basically done. And it's just like one of those things that's taking a while, because I don't like to do plain knitting unless I'm like being social or something, because I find it, you know, kind of repetitive. Sometimes I just want to relax, but oftentimes I want to, like, you know, use my brain for this stuff. So I tend to work on, lately especially, I tend to be working on more complicated things. So here, I'll show you one of them. Okay, only one. Okay, 2 more whips. So the Long Road cardigan, still going. I just finished, I thought it was skein 4, but I actually think it's only skein 3. Maybe I just had more than I thought I did, because I went downstairs to go look at how much more yarn I had left, and there was so much of it, and I was like, oh gosh. So I'm making the Long Road cardigan by Meiju KP from Alina Contrasts, which I've shown in the last few episodes, so I didn't bring the book today, but I will link the pattern through Ravelry, which you can't probably buy as an individual pattern yet, but you can get the book, and I'll link the book as well. So for those of you who are new or who have missed a couple weeks, this has been a slight saga because I had to rip out the first bit because it was too small. Then the second iteration, when I knitted the next size up, also seemed like it was going to be too small, but then I blocked so I knitted it up to the armhole divide basically, and just like a tiny bit past that, and then I blocked it because I wanted to see if the cables would relax, because I was like, I might as well see this now. And then if they don't relax, I'll rip it out and do it again on bigger needles or in a bigger size. So I decided to do that. It was a good thing I did, because it was correct, but it just put me kind of peace of mind. And I kind of showed this last week, but you can see kind of here are the relaxed cables at the top. And then you can see they're much more bunched up. I call them angry. They're angry because they're not blocked yet. So there's some angry cables here. Yeah, just a little angry. These cables are really intuitive. So I haven't knitted a cable sweater in a long time. I did in the past. My first sweater was a cable sweater. It was huge. I should wear it one of these days. It's a big green. I didn't want to do a pullover in this because I already have a huge green Aran sweater, which is the first sweater I made. And yeah, so it's, I have done cabled sweaters. I just don't, cables take longer for me than color work. And I really like, I have one of those, you know, minds where like I really like to, you know, I like to learn a new skill, but then I like to really like go deep on the new skill, and not even that within it. That includes within knitting, not just like knitting itself. So because when I learned color work, I just kind of like became obsessed. I really felt like I needed to master a lot of color work techniques before I like moved on to master something else. And it's not like, I mean, yeah, you can get better at cables by knitting them, but the thing I want to master this year is not being afraid of purling. And I'm not afraid of purling, I just don't do it very much because I knit so much color work, which doesn't really involve purling. So I'm just kind of trying to like diversify my my output a little bit, because I have a lot of color work stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't really have that many cabled sweaters, and so there's a practical reason too. I am indeed wearing this over pajamas. It's really cold and it's like 9 in the morning, so you know. But yeah, this is my Vermont flannel pajama shirt. I have a whole set on. You can't see them, but there is a matching pair of flannel pants too. The Vermont Flannel Company has the like thickest, softest flannel. I will link them in the show notes too. It's expensive. It used to be a lot less expensive. Like when I got these pajamas, they were probably like 2/3 of what you would pay now for these products. But you know, inflation. Also, I got them a long time ago, so they're expensive, but it's worth it if you like flannel stuff. It's very like authentic. You can get like the buffalo check, and you can get all sorts of nice stuff. But anyway, I have 8 more skeins of this, and I'm not sure if I've knit 4 or 3 yet, but I realize that's a lot left. So I was gonna just like go for it and knit the sleeves now, like because I finished whatever 3 or 4 skeins, and it's like I have a good amount of the body done, and I was gonna knit the sleeves and then just like know that I had enough yarn to knit them the length that I wanted, and then be able to knit the body as long as I could, and then also knit the hood, because I think I'm trying to knit the hood. I considered just not, because it was like I might not have enough yarn, and then I just went downstairs and I got all the yarn. I pulled it out of the yarn hutch. No, it's not a hutch. It doesn't have a door. It's like a cubes from IKEA. But this is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter and Button Jar. This is the colorway. Button Jar. I got this at Pin Tuck and Pearl, which is I think Massachusetts. I got this during the Together Apart sale, so that was like 2.5, 3 years ago, when they had like 10, 20, or 30% off during COVID, whatever you preferred. So yeah, that's fun. This is, if you're not familiar with Brooklyn Tweed, this is an American Targhee Columbia wool. So all American sourced, and I have 8 more skeins. So, and it brings a little bag. So yeah, I think I might do another skein. I did wind one up, 1 more skein on the body, and then I'll knit the sleeves and the hood, and then I'll keep going on the body and make it a big old fun coat. Okay. Oh, that's stuck. Oh, your wool, like especially like wool and spun yarn, always sticks to each other. I'm like always like, what is that? Oh, it's just yarn sticking to me. Okay. This is my last whip that I'm gonna show today, because it's my last like active whip. So I think I teased this last week. Okay, let's start by showing you this. I'm knitting a second version of this cowl, which I wear all the time. It just fell. So this is a cowl that I designed after knitting Mary Jane Mucklestone's Koval cowl from Fair Isle Weekend. I just really liked the shape of the cowl, and because it's just a simple tube with a Moebius twist, so I knitted Mary Jane Mucklestone's, but you can also knit the Vari cowl by Gudrun Johnston. Andrea Mowry has a couple. One is called Across the Pond. She's got one called Velvet Mirror, which is knitted with like Surrey alpaca and as the color work, which is super cool. I just really liked the coziness of the Moebius twist, and I made one for when I was a nanny 2 years ago. I made one for the kid's mom, and then I wanted one for myself, and so I made another one. That's Jordan. She's probably playing with her rats. She got 3 little baby rats this week, and they're, oh my gosh, they're white with little gray and like orange kind of markings on their heads. And then right now they're babies, so they're not very big, but oh gosh, are they cute. A lot of people are really scared of rats, but these are domestic rats, so they are very clean. They're adorable. It's like having a hamster, but it's way smarter. But yeah, they're really cute. Anyway, I designed this with Shetland motif books. So you've got the Peary motif here, the small motif, and this is the same everywhere. So for every iteration of the small motif between the larger bands, it's the same and the same colors. So, and then the big ones change. So there's 4 big patterns in this cowl, and I am writing it up. I'm knitting a second one so that I can write up the pattern and publish it eventually. So you see there's a star here, which kind of looks like a cell blue star, but this is a Shetland pattern. I mean, people shared patterns, so whatever. And then there's an oxo here. So an oxo is a traditional Shetland motif. OXO, there's obviously the X and there's the O. This is the star and this one are also types of stylized oxos. You can see like that's an X and then this is like an O, but they don't look so obvious. And then this is another oxo. So there are 2 different oxo patterns. There's this one and there's this one. So just like, you know, I like that you're not always knitting the same thing. So for the green cowl that I have kind of showed like before Christmas that I made for my grandma, that one I did the same thing. I just offset the oxos, like it was the same oxo for every big band. I just offset them so that the X and the O lined up. And that was kind of boring. This is more fun. There's 8 different colors in this. These are all blues and grays and a white. I talked about the color theory of this in my Shopcast episode on the woolly thistle a week ago that was released. Well, so for you, that'd be like a week and a half ago. So it has as I said, it has a Moebius twist. And if you're not sure what that is, I'll show you. It's got this little twist. So when you graft it together with Kitchener stitch, so you're knitting it in a big tube, but you use a provisional cast on so that you can unzip it later. So you unzip that cast on and you're gonna Kitchener it together with the end live stitches. So you're grafting live stitches together. And when you do that, you turn it so that you're grafting the last stitch of the round to like the middle stitch of the round on the other side, so that or you can just turn it a whole time and just graft them together. Like Andrea Mowry's always have you turn it a whole time, but most of the Shetland ones, you just give it a half twist. So you're like, if there's 144 stitches in the pattern, you'd graft stitch number 1 to stitch number 73, and then on the other edge, and then it would have a half twist like this. And I think in Fair Isle Weekend, Mary Jane Mucklestone mentions that it's really fun because it's so cozy. It gives you like some extra snuggle. So, as I said last week, I'm knitting a version of this for someone that I know from my past, Toronto. Oh no, the stitch marker must have fallen out. Dang, why do I always end at the end of the row? That's such a stupid thing to do. I should end in the middle of the row so stitch markers don't fall out. Okay, so I'm knitting this for someone I know named Bonnie. So I'm gonna name it the Bonnie Cowl because I think that's fun and sweet. And Bonnie is literally one of the nicest people I know. She's a singer from Toronto who I used to know when I was or I still know her, but I used to sing with her when I was in college. And she's going to Scotland, and so she commissioned this for me. You cannot normally commission things for me unless you know me. If you know me, you can, but I don't do that most of the time. But I knit for friends and family. So yeah, this is unless you want to pay me to knit you a sample, I can do that. But yeah, this is the version for her. So she wanted blues, pinks, purples, cream, gray. She loved all those colors. And so I thought I would do some blues and then purples and the pinks. So I've got 2 kind of purples, which are foreground colors, and then 2 lighter pinky purples as the backgrounds here and here. For the Peary is a little harder to see because the contrast isn't super high, but there it is. And then I've got the purple here and then 2 blues. This one's a little darker than this middle one, and there's like an eggshell kind of light blue and then a white. Again, a lot of pattern combinations or color combinations in Shetland are made so that you don't necessarily see the shifting colors as obviously. They're kind of supposed to look like watercolor paintings almost, and that's why a lot of the yarns are so heathered. So I've got mostly heathered shades here, but a couple of solid ones. This lighter purple here is one of my, at the background of the darker purple motif. That's a solid color, but I think the only other one is white. The rest of these are heathered. I'm using Jameson's of Shetland yarn for this, and I will, when I publish the pattern, I will have all of the colorways named. But I like Jameson's, Jameson and Smith, but I also like Jameson's of Shetland, and I have a variety of both yarns, and I try as much as I can, if I know I'm going to publish a pattern, I really try to use just one of them because it's just easier for somebody to make kits or whatever. So, you know, it's just easier if you just name one yarn in the pattern. You use this yarn, and then you can, you know, you can interchange them if you want, but it's just a little bit more streamlined, makes it a little easier. So yeah, this is the Bonnie cowl, and I really like how it's being knitting up in these other colors. This is kind of fun because I actually made another one of these cowls, made it for my friend Lauren, who loves pink, in these pinks and purples. I made that same type of cowl, and I made it for her, and I love that. It's really, yeah, so this is kind of like a mashup of the two other cowls I made, and then I made the green one recently, which is going to be called the Natalie cowl because my grandma's name is Natalie. And yeah, so this is the Bonnie cowl, and I am a huge fan. And as you know, if you have watched me from the beginning, I used to talk exclusively about Fair Isle stuff, and so this is a little bit of my return to my roots for my 2-year anniversary. This is like basically the 2-year anniversary-ish, because I thought I started in January, and then I thought maybe I started in March. Went back to look, I started in February of 2021. So there's that. Okay, whip's done. Let's put this away, and then we'll talk about spinning. So I have been spinning a lot of my e-spinner this week. I spun something on the wheel though. So I spun, the first thing I'm going to show you is this thing that this was a wheel spin. This is Devonia by John Arbin. It's a top. Obviously didn't come to me as yarn, it came to me as a top. And this is the colorway Moonbloom. I will link John Arbin's website in the show notes for Devonia, so you can get this as DK or fingering weight yarn, or you can get it as top like I did, and then you can spin it yourself. And so for me, this came out to be sport weight, so you can't buy this like this. So I had a good time spinning this top. It's John Arbin tops are very heathered, as you can see. There's a lot of different, like there's like a light cream silvery, and there's like a lighter blue, and there's like a darker blue, and it's all blended together in a combed top machine, like in a carder, so that all the colors are blended up as top. And then yeah, the hand spinning effect is very similar to what you'd get on a machine when the machines spin it. So awesome, I love this. It hasn't been washed yet, so I don't know, but there's about just over 300 yards and 97 grams. So the first bobbin, I was spinning a little thicker because this is a blend. So it's like 50% Exmoor Blueface, which is a cross between a Blueface Leicester and an Exmoor Horn. And then 30% BFL, Blueface Leicester, which is a long wool. And then the last 20% is Wensleydale, which is a super long wool, super long staple length. So it's very drapey when you knit with Devonia. I had a good time spinning it. I didn't mind that it was a blend. I didn't seem to be getting any short fibers. I have had more practice. So like when I first started spinning, I had a lot of just like fiber in my hands left over. Didn't, you know, it took a while for me to stop having that. So I don't have that anymore, which is amazing. But yeah, that's one of the things that happens. So didn't happen anymore, which is good. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what to even say now. The first bobbin, the singles were a little thicker. So I got better at drafting thinner with this blend, which is my preferred drafting. Like my default is like, would probably be like between 300 and 400 yards and 100 gram skein or 100 gram bump. Whatever that grist is, somewhere between like, I don't know, 1700 and 1900, I guess. If you're a spinner, grist, or if you're not a spinner, grist means yards per pound. So I always calculate the grist on my yarns, and I will put the calculation for grist in the show notes. You basically do the yards divided by the grams, and then you multiply it by like 453 point something, and then you get the grist. And it just gives you kind of like a number that it's like yards per pound. So you know, like you can compare each skein to each other based on grist. without like, because sometimes skeins are different weights and different yardages. And I mean, you could do like right over 100 equals part over base, which is like the only 7th grade math I remember, to see how many yards you'd get in 100 grams, which is usually how I do calculations like that, to see how much yardage I have in a project. But grist is just like a good way of kind of measuring that among spinners. So I like to do that. So there's that. What else did I spin? Okay, so I decided, this is what I showed you last week. This is the Targhee Nest Fiber Club from last month in the colorway Andromeda. I'm gonna make a cowl with this, like one of my own designs, with I think a dark color, like maybe Jameson and Smith jumper weight in like 81, which is that dark charcoal. I think I might do that, and it's gonna look like the Northern Lights, which is fun and pretty. So that's cool. So last week I showed you these bobbins. So this as 2 bobbins, or maybe 1 bobbin and a half. So this is some Cheviot that used to be gray, and then I dyed it random teal and navy and forest green. And I just kind of poured it over the fiber in a sheet pan, and it was like a big variegated. I'll show you what that kind of thing looks like in a second. I tried to do it kind of ombre, and then I basically did a fractal spin. And I was talking about this last week because I just gone to spin night at Clover Hill Yarn Shop with my friend Sarah and a bunch of people that I didn't know. And then, and so I spun this, I spun like 1.5 bobbins of this, and then I did the rest when I got home that night, and then I applied them the next morning, but I think I applied them after I showed it. So the first one came out like this. And then I think I showed this fiber. So this was the red, like oxblood and pink, like magenta one. So I spun this one like the day after. I was just like so excited about this one. I was like, I gotta do more. And then I kept dyeing the yarns, and I did a bunch more. I did like a full murky rainbow. I was like, that is so nice. I'm gonna do, because I had a pound of this. And so I decided to do like the full rainbow. So these are the 2 that I've already spun. The next one, which this is just one of the bobbins. This is all done, but I was just letting the singles rest. So, oh yes, I actually let the singles rest on this for 48 hours. I mean, one of the singles rested for longer than that, and then the second one lasted for 48 hours. And the reason that I learned that people like to do that is because the twist relaxes over time, which means that for me, who I spin with a lot of twist, it means I get fewer pigtails when I'm applying the yarn. And I did notice a difference, so I'm gonna keep letting my singles rest like that. And it's helpful to have multiple tools. Like now that I have the e-spinner, and that has like 6 giant bobbins, I can finish a wheel spin, let it sit for 2 days, still work on a spin on my electric spinner, and then go back and ply. And so I just kind of have like a rotation of like letting singles rest while I spin new singles, etc. So this is the blue, and like I did like a dark blue, and then like a medium kind of lightish blue, and then kind of like a tealy turquoise aqua, and it looks so cool on the gray base. It's so murky. I don't know if it will focus, but there you go. You can kind of see that. So this is number 3. One thing that I just remembered, and you can see if you have an electric eel wheel, you might know what I'm talking about. So is that I sanded down this little notch where the Scotch tension string, the break band basically goes over. And the reason I did that was because this is a problem that everyone has with their EEW. If you have one, and I'll show it to you. This is what it looks like. You can see my next spin. There's a sneak peek. So this is the electric eel wheel, and this is the tension or the break. So it just has a regular Scotch tension setup. If you have a wheel, you probably have a Scotch tension setup, even if your wheel is capable of double drive. Mine has a setup for Scotch and Irish. I just don't use it because I have a spin mostly on a matchless, a Shack matchless, which is a wheel that I got used. And it's amazing. It's older than I am. It was made in 1988, and I was made in 1993. So, and it works. It's in perfect condition. So as you can see here, the band here goes over that notch, and this is just a cotton drive band like you would use on any drive band. So because these bobbins aren't basically 3D printed, I think they're 3D printed. They're just plastic and they're quite lightweight. There are little just, you know, pieces of sharper plastic that just come from manufacturing. That's a normal thing. But that includes sometimes a piece of plastic in this notch that's like, when you put them together, as you can see, there's like a line there. So that's where you'd get the spots inside the little notch there. That's where you'd get the little plastic bumps. And so those are sharp. Those sharp little plastic bumps, you know, they go over this thing, and the bobbin spins and the flyer spins, everything's spinning. There's a lot of friction from those little plastic sharp nubs or nups, whatever they are, like on this cotton string. And it's cloth, and so it wears down and wears down and wears down, and they snap. And that's normal. They all snap. As you can see, I've tied mine. Actually, I've tied it twice. Right next to each other, there's 2 knots. So I can tie it twice before I have to replace, basically. But then I have to replace the cotton string. So I got some sandpaper, and I just like folded it so that it was really small, and I just right over the 2 spots on each bobbin that have those little spots. And that kind of helps. I can tell, because you can see in there, I can tell that those spots are now rubbed down. Those won't be friction areas anymore, as, I mean, everything causes friction. That's the whole point of the brake band. But like, it doesn't have the little, it's not gonna have a little sharp thing that's just like tearing that, like serrating that, you know, that cotton string anymore. So if you are having a big issue with that, I would recommend using some sandpaper, just fine sandpaper. Just fold it in half and get it in there, and just like you're cutting a bagel. I don't know. So that I did. Okay, so here are some of the other pieces of top in my murky rainbow. So there's my pink and red. Pink and red here. This is the red. So this is red's cayenne and fire engine and ox blood. And again, this is a gray cheaty at base, so you can see some of the like darker streaks in it. Super fun. This is my orange one. Orange and a tiny bit of yellow at the end. Got cayenne, and we've got blazing orange here. And then we've got our little yellow, so that there's a little bit of fun variegation in there. This is my yellow. A little bit of green at the bottom there, but this is mostly kind of a bright sunflowery yellow, going into kind of a straw color and then ending in a kind of a lichen-y color. Nice and fun. This is my green. Got avocado, forest green. I got that lichen color in there. I always braid these just because it keeps them together in a nice way. And then the blues, and then well, this is the teal, and then there's like the blue, which is on the bobbin, and then this is the purple. So I got some delphinium blue in there, which is just a little bit, but then I got deep purple, royal purple, or maybe it's lilac and deep purple, I think I did, yeah. So here are all the fun rainbow pieces, top, roving, that I dyed. Lots of fun, and then the ones that are already done. So I'm gonna just have a ton of skeins of this. This is all, these are basically fingering weight skeins. I tried to make them each about 2 ounces so that they were like the weight and yardage of spin cycle dyed in the wool, because I love to use that yarn. So I'm trying to, you know, make yarn that's a proper weight so that I can knit like Andrea Mary pen, as it called, for dyed in the wool, or whatever I want. I don't know what I'm gonna make with all these. It's gonna be a lot. It's like almost a pound of yarn. So there's enough for like the biggest shawl in the world, or like also color work stuff, or I could make like 10 different things, just like a series of these rainbow things. So I don't know yet. It'll be fun to kind of experiment with that once the yarn is created. Like I have the whole series. So I'm like, maybe I'll design something. I don't know. But this is my current spin, which I did tease. So this is the Nest Fiber Club for February. Well, it just came at the end of January, but it's the February color. It's called Love Struck, and it's on Polworth. So you can get a variety of different bases from Nest. You can get superwash merino, You can get the like fancy fibers, the like luxury fibers, which is like, that would be like polar silk and like, I don't know, something silk. They're all fancy with like silk. BFL silk, they're usually just whatever blended with silk. And then you can get the mixed fibers, which is what I have. I don't like superwash, so I have just the mixed fibers. And so this is Polworth. It's been, so far I've got mixed BFL, Rambouillet, and Targhee. Both of those are super bouncy, and Polworth. And Polworth is also quite bouncy, but it's not quite as bouncy as the other ones. So initial plan for this, these come in big bumps. Like they give you 120 grams, even at least this one is, because I weighed it, and this one was also 120 grams. So that's a lot of fiber. It's more than 4 ounces, which is what they tell you it is. So I divided this into 2, and I was like, I'll just do a fractal. And then once I started drafting, the singles were really, really small, and I was like, maybe I'll divide it into 3, because then I can 3 40-ounce bobbins, and then I'll do a 3-ply. And I'll see what the weight is, because I would like to see what my default DK is on Polworth, and then maybe I'll make some socks, because it's 3-ply. So we'll see what happens there. But I am getting pretty thin singles, so that's fun. I'm using the orifice reducer on this for the first time. I started using it yesterday when I was plying, and I like it. It's really easy to take in and out. It just pops in and out like that. And you just push it in. You have to take it out when you're taking off the flyer, just FYI. So this is so far what it looks like. It's fun. I thought, some moments are really, really murky because you've got that sage green mixing with pink a couple of times. And so like if you're spinning across the top, even if it's fractal, and there's not that much of an area here where the color is shifting, you're still getting this kind of murky area. So, like basically here to here is a little bit iffy, but I think it's going to look really pretty. The colors are mostly staying together enough that I think it will still be coherent, cohesive. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, this is my first bobbin, so it may take a while. I'm not sure if it'll be done next week. It probably will be, because yeah, I'm trying to not to spin quite as much. The Cheviot, I don't know if it was just compacted in the water, got a little felted. I was having a tiny bit of thumb tension this week, and so I kind of just like, with the Cheviot, I think it was as a result of that. I also don't know, like the speed of the E-spinner might be causing it. So whenever I get thumb tension, I stop spinning, because I don't want to get carpal tunnel. So, and I stretch my thumb, and I use my left hand to draft, even though I'm right-handed. A lot of people do that. You do whatever's comfortable, but a lot of people draft with their left hand forward. I do a lot of things with my left hand forward. Like, I knit continental, I knit combination style, but I use my left hand to throw the yarn. So I'm very used to fiber handling, yarn handling with my left hand. So I think that might be part of it. But also women, button our shirts left-handed, which is so funny. When I go to button a men's, I don't have very many men's shirts, but as I said in the beginning of this, if you're new, I do church music professionally. So especially if I have like a sub gig at a church, like I go to substitute for another singer, I have to wear like a random cassock, which is the like red or black or purple or blue, whatever I think goes underneath the white part, which is called a surplice. And so you have to you either borrow someone's or they have extras, and they actually do make them for men and women. So like with the buttons on the correct side if you're a man or a woman. And I always know if I have a man's one, and I get really annoyed because I'm like, this is so hard to button. Like, how do they do that? And then I was talking to Nitin about this, one of my friends, the other day, and he was like, yeah, and he looked it up and he was like, oh, it's because men dress themselves, and it's easier to button if you're right-handed, if the buttons are on the right side. And if women historically were, especially like if they had fancy buttons on their clothes, they were usually dressed by a servant, and so the servant would button it with their right hand, and so for the women it was opposite. So that's really funny to me, that like for me it's actually harder to button something with my right hand, because the left hand is just like, it makes more sense. Like that's how everything that I've ever owned has been buttoned. And so but then I was confused because this button, actually I sewed the buttons on the wrong side. I sewed them on the right side, the men's side, instead of the left side. And I was like, but this feels normal because I can still do it with my left hand. But yeah, that was funny. But I think it's really hard to button with my right hand. It's just a fun fact about me, and probably most women. So Cool. Trying to think if there's anything else. I have been watching the Oscar Best Picture nominations as much as possible. A lot of them are available on streaming services and some of them are still in theaters. So I am working my way through Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is crazy. I don't know what I thought it was going to be like, but it was nuts. I'm about halfway through. So that's been fun and overwhelming. And then last week I watched Women Talking because that was in the theaters. That was really good. I really liked Women Talking. Last night I watched Elvis with my roommate Jordan and one of our friends Brianna, and we mostly just talked through the whole thing. So like we watched it, but we didn't really like take very much in, but it was a lot. It was a lot. So I need a sip of water, sorry. So visually, I watched the Elvis movie, but I haven't actually watched it really properly. I might watch it, but it's really long. It's almost 3 hours, but it is on HBO Max. So if you have HBO Max, you can watch the Elvis movie if you haven't seen it already. And I watched like half of All Quiet on the Western Front. And I'm finishing that, but that's like just like basically just people getting shot in trenches. It's a beautiful movie, I guess, but it's also like really sad. It's just like this guy that like all his friends just die in World War I and he just doesn't die. Like he's just like really lucky and never gets hit with a landmine. So that's fun. That's on Netflix. I was watching it dubbed in English, but then this morning I was like using the e-spinner, and so they're like, and I forgot my headphones at work, my AirPods at work yesterday, so I don't have any headphones for my laptop. And so I was watching it with like the volume pretty low because the girls were asleep upstairs, and I just put it back into German because I needed the closed captions anyway because I couldn't hear properly. And like when they're all shouting stuff in war, like I really don't like watching movies with subtitles or anything, shows that are normally in English, because I get really distracted by the subtitles. I just get really like, I can't look away from them and watch the movie or the show, which just really frustrates me. But like when it's something like this, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I need it. I need the subtitles on. Like all the movie is just people getting shot in trenches. So I haven't finished the movie. I'm only like halfway through, so maybe more stuff happens. But it's basically like this kid is like really excited to go to war to like fight for his Kaiser, and then all his friends just die, and it's like really bloody and gross. And it's kind of sad. I just got to the scene where he like stabbed the American soldier like 20 times, which was really gory and kind of awful. So don't watch that if you don't like gore and violence and war. But I'm gonna watch all of the Best Picture nominees, except I'm not gonna watch Avatar. I will watch Top Gun because I bet that's fun. I don't have a problem. I like action movies, but I'm not gonna watch Avatar. I didn't watch the first one, and I don't care to watch this one because it's just not really my jam. I don't have a problem if it is your jam. My dad and my brother went to go see it when I was home, but I'm not gonna go see it. So anyway, yeah, but I have a bunch of stuff to get done this weekend. I basically took a 3-year sabbatical from church music, almost 3 years because of COVID. And I was singing in Philly before every Sunday I was singing in Philly before COVID. And then obviously there was no church music for a long time. And then it's been basically back since 2021 after people got vaccinated, which is awesome. But yeah, it's, I kind of resisted when I moved to Baltimore because there weren't any choirs to do volunteer, like sing, like it would be like a semi-professional, I guess would be what you call it. So it's like a big choir of like a corps of professional singers and then volunteers. Like there are choirs that have those in Baltimore. So if you know of one and you're thinking of one and you're like, totally are. I have a specific, like a really high level choir that has volunteers, like high level church music. Because in grad school, I didn't sing professionally. I just sang in a big volunteer choir it was a big semi-pro choir. So there were a lot of professionals and there were also a lot of volunteers. See, the wool just sticks to everything. So I would have done that here because I just think it's fun and it's not as high pressure if you are not singing if you're not one of the professionals. So like for me, I have the ability to sing at that level, but because I'm a good sight reader mostly, But like, it's, there's a lot of pressure to always be there and, be on time, and you can't really miss assignments. You can miss a Sunday, you can get a sub, which is what basically I'm doing now. So I started subbing, which means that if someone can't go, they call you and you come on Sunday, and you don't know what the music is until they hand it to you. Sometimes you get to go to the rehearsal and you get to go to the service, and then you get to practice a little bit more. Sometimes they're just like, all right, here's the music. Here's the music. They'll tell you usually what the music is if it's for a Sunday, and then you just kind of, if you want to look it up, you can, but you have to be a good reader basically. So I'm a very good reader, which is why I'm a good sub. And but last weekend I went to this church in DC with my friend Monica, who is a knitter, and I keep talking about her, but she's never been on the channel because she's really busy driving to DC every day except Saturdays, because she works at St. Paul's K Street, which is a big church in Foggy Bottom near George Washington University campus. And they have the choir that I was describing, so volunteers and professionals. And she has a great core of people there, but she only right now has 5 professional singers because she only has like 1 tenor or something, and so she has the money to pay 6, but she only has 5. And so last week I went to go sub for somebody, which was awesome. But then she was like, do you want to just come every Sunday, because I have a vacancy for someone to pay, and so I can pay you can sing whatever part you want, for until I find 2 more tenors, because she needs to find 2 for complicated reasons, which is like probably going to be a while. So she was like, at least through Easter, whatever. It's a lot of driving, but it's also like a lot of money for me, so I'm gonna do that. This weekend I'm actually gonna sing in Baltimore at a church just up the street, but because you go for DC, you got to go on Thursday and Sundays, and then there's midweek mass or whatever for feast days. And so again, it's a lot of money, so I'm saving money for to have a Roth, so I can buy a house someday in the next few years. And so I'm taking on things like that, gig work, and like selling patterns on Ravelry and stuff, that it's not like normal income for me because I do have a normal job. So that I can have savings, like a big savings account, hopefully build it up and like invest it in stuff. So that's fun. I'm learning how to be an adult. So I've been doing a lot, but it's also like church music is also something that brings me a lot of joy. And it's one of those things where, I trained for a really long time, and all the way through childhood until I was 18, and then I sang professionally in college, and then I sang in graduate school as well. And it's just I read a lot of books about psychology and how to work better and focus and stuff at work, because I coach students on how to do that. And so I read a lot of, basically self-help books that are, interesting and full of ideas and reasons you should do deep work or whatever. So I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport right now, and he was talking about in one of these chapters like state of flow, and how deep work can help you get these skills to then bring you to state of flow. And I was like, well, yeah, I feel a state of flow when I'm knitting sometimes, like especially like Fair Isle knitting, I will feel that flow. But the most I feel flow, like the flow where you're like super, your brain is completely engaged, but you don't feel like it's difficult or painful. Like for me, the best state of flow I can be in is church music flow. So it's really like, it's good for your mind and your soul and your psyche and stuff to give yourself the time to go into states of flow. And so I'm doing a lot of church music, and so as a result, I'm super busy, but at the end of the day, like I get to do it with my best friend, and I get money, and I get to enjoy myself because I love singing church music. So, and I get to use the skills that I spent 25 years building. So it's very powerful. So I've been doing a lot of that. But yeah, and I'm still reading A Prayer for Owen Meany, which I love. I said this a few weeks ago that I was going to start this book, and I'm like maybe 250 pages in now. So a lot of people said that they loved this book in the comments, and so I think it's really funny the way that the author, John Irving, puts all the text from Owen Meany in capital letters. And it's like at the beginning of the book, they tell you that he has this really strange voice that's like all like kind of croaky and crackly, but it's really high and weird. And he kind of describes it. And the only like voice I could think of that I'd ever heard that like just that seemed like it was being described in that text was the voice of Marge Simpson. So if you have read this book and know what I'm talking about, when I read the book, every time I see a passage from him that's all in caps, in my head I read it in Marge Simpson's voice. And I've been meaning to say that for the last 2 weeks and I've forgotten both times. So yeah, that's been really entertaining. I read that before bed. It actually does help me fall asleep. It really does. It helps me sleep through the night to read before bed and get off the screens. So that's fun. I really didn't sleep well last night because I went to bed really late. And then, yeah, my brain was just like buzzing because I'd watched this crazy Elvis movie and it took me a while to fall asleep. But then I also woke up at like 4 a.m. I went back to sleep. I'm trying to be better because my brain will just like fill up with thoughts and then it's hard to fall asleep, but I don't want to stop thinking. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to think through that thing, you know, when I wake up in the middle of the night. And so I'm trying to like, basically I have to say to myself, like internally, I'm like, Emma, go back to sleep, turn it off. And I like, it's like I'm pressing a button, it's like off. And all I focus on is like, you know, breathing and stuff so that the thoughts don't crowd my head, and it works. It's like meditating. What a thought makes you sleep better. I've known this for years and I love thinking so much that I don't like sleeping. Okay, so this has probably now been over an hour, which I didn't anticipate, but that's how it is sometimes. So if you're still with me, wow, we've just been through a lot together. There's just yarn, I'm picking it off myself. So I'm gonna end this now. Like and subscribe, ring the bell if you want to be notified when I release new episodes. They're always on Tuesdays, usually Tuesday mornings, unless I'm running late, and then sometimes it's later on Tuesday. And sometimes I take a break. I don't take that many breaks, but yeah, I'm almost to 100 episodes. This is like 98 or 99. So maybe we'll do something crazy for episode 100. I don't know what I'll do. I need to crowdsource that. Maybe I'll give something away. I have a ton of pairs of socks. Maybe I should give some of them away. Okay, this is long enough. So if you're still with me, thank you so much for watching. This has been Tiny Desk Knitting with Emma. Bye.